Hey guys, we'll be getting started shortly. I'm just giving a couple minutes for people to come on. I'm really excited about today's class. If you guys have any questions, feel free to at any point put them in the comments, and at the end we'll go through them. So we'll be starting very shortly. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Today we're just gonna be talking about different diets. I'm really excited about this topic. It's a question I get quite often, like what diet should I try? What diet works the best? Which one, is the most feasible? Which one's the easiest? Which one is the most sustainable? So we're gonna be talking about quite a few different diets today, and then you can kind of make that decision for yourself based off what, the information I present to you guys. So just a little bit about me. As always, I like to, kind of introduce myself to you guys just in case there's anybody new. I got a bachelor's and master's degree in food and nutritional sciences from North Carolina A&T State University. I currently work with Virginia Cooperative Extension through Virginia Tech. I am the Family and Consumer Science SNAP Ed agent. So basically what that means, as an extension agent, I create content, I create classes and courses and all sorts of things focusing around a specific topic, and my area of focus is nutrition, specifically obesity prevention. I'm funded through the SNAP Ed grant, so the same grant that provides, money for SNAP benefits. It's the same grant that provides my funding for my job. I've been there for 3.5 years now. So I just want to give you guys an overview. We're going to basically define what actually a diet is. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the basics to losing weight. And then we're going to go into the specific diets. And if you guys have questions at any point, you can just put them in the comments and then we'll look at them. So just to define diet, I wanted to talk about the actual definition of the word diet because it's going to be used kind of in two different ways throughout this presentation. One way is the It's just the kinds of foods that a person or animal or community habitually eats. So the thing is like we all have a diet. Like your diet is not necessarily that it's one that's a good diet or bad. It's just what you eat, what you regularly eat on a regular day, what you regularly eat throughout a year. That's your diet, like, so I'm from the South. So like my diet is very heavily in, fried foods and, collard greens and black eyed peas. And that's just, how it is for me. And that's the diet that I prescribe to or whatever. And so like, but then there's also the term diet as we see it kind of more in your health and wellness realms, where it's like a specific course of food to which one restricts oneself either to lose weight or for specific like medical reasons. So like in that way, a diet is what you're actually, you might, when someone say they're dieting, that's the diet definition that they're referring to. They're referring to the fact that they're, eating specific foods in the hopes to lose weight. Or it might be like in the case if they had like celiac disease or Crohn's disease, where they might have like a gluten allergy or something, where they have to eat a specific way just so that for that medical reason. So just to kind of go over just what losing weight, like how do you lose weight? It doesn't necessarily matter what you eat. The long and short of it is basically it matters more about the math. So to lose weight, you have to be in some type of caloric deficit. And a caloric deficit is any shortage in the amount of calories consumed relative to the amount of calories required to maintain your current body weight. So like to function, your body uses energy. Just to sleep, your body uses energy to, wake up, to go about your day, to work, to walk to your car, walk to your office, to just like survive. Your body uses up energy. You could literally just sit for an entire day and your body will use up energy because of the fact that you have the blood pumping, your heart's pumping blood through your body, you're breathing in and out, so your lungs are being worked. There's all these functions in our body that are going constantly, and that requires energy. We start to lose weight when the energy that we use so like just to survive is greater than the amount that we are actually consuming. So basically, you can look at it, the flip way to look at it is like if you start to eat less, if you consume less calories, and you maintain your current amount of like physical activity, you'll lose weight. How much? So basically, there's 3,500 calories in 1 pound. So if you want to lose like 1 pound of fat, you would have to decrease your energy consumption by 3,500 calories. And that sounds like a lot, and it can be. Like the way you can look at it though is that you wouldn't do all that in one day. You can spread that 3,500 calories over a course of a week, so that's 7 days, and that'll be roughly 500 calories. Now, to decrease your consumption by 500 calories isn't actually a lot. In my last class that we did last month, we kind of talked about that a little bit, but basically it'll be like, let's say you normally eat a candy bar every day. For some reason, you eating candy bars every single day. Well, one candy bar is 250 calories. So that's half the calories right there. There's small changes you can make that could lead up to that 500 calorie deficit. So it might be replacing some of your drinks with water. It might be picking the low fat milk as opposed to full fat milk. It could mean like, doing a lower fat option as far as like a dressing or whatever, having a dressing on the side. It could also mean you could be doing more physical activity. So one other way you can create a deficit is by increasing the amount of calories you burn. So as opposed to like reducing how much you eat, you can just start exercising more. So you can spend basically like, so I go to Zumba. One Zumba class is about an hour long, and in that class I can I can burn rather easily over 500 calories. Like I went to Zumba yesterday and I was at, I think 515 when I left the class. I had burned 515 calories. So there are things that you can possibly do. You can like go on walks. You can incorporate more physical activity in your day. You can like even just go to the gym for an extra class, and like those little moments of exercise really add up. And so the thing is, you don't have to do one or the other. You can do a combination of both. And like when I'm talking to someone about nutrition, when I'm talking to somebody when they want to really focus on their weight, and like get into like a really good habits, I encourage them to do both. So like I would encourage them to cut back on eating some, but then I also encourage them to, increase their physical activity. So then that way it's not as much. So like if you used to not exercise and all of a sudden you're trying to burn 500 calories a day through exercise, that's going to be a lot. Like you literally have to like put forth some effort to do that. If you're trying to decrease your calorie consumption by 500 calories, that could be a lot for certain people, particularly if you already kind of eat pretty healthy already. It's going to be even more difficult to like cut those calories. But if you do a combination of the two, it's a lot more sustainable and a lot easier. So the first set of diets that I kind of wanted to like focus on is just the liquid-based diets. So they're kind of like, you'll have like your juice diet. So people will say that, oh, they're juicing. They might drink a tea, or they might drink like a weird lemonade mix where it's like the water with the lemon juice, but also like honey or maple syrup and then like cayenne pepper or something. Sometimes people will start doing a lot of smoothies, so they are only consuming smoothies, and this also includes like soups. So like I've heard people say that they do like this cabbage soup. They call it the cabbage soup diet, where basically you just boil cabbage and that's what you have to eat. And so the thing about these diets, and I use the term diet very loosely because really their whole purpose is so that you could possibly detox. But the thing is, as long as your kidneys are performing and functioning properly, as long as your liver is functioning properly, you don't have to detox. Like your body does that naturally. So you don't have to drink a special drink to detox. You don't have to only drink smoothies to detox. You don't really have to do it. Typically, these diets are only for a short period of time. So like you might do a juice diet for like 3 to 7 days. Smoothies, just because they have a little bit more fiber and a little bit more substance to them. I've seen people who've done them for like 21 days. Now, of course, you have your extreme people. It's this one guy. His name is Joe, and I believe he had a documentary on Netflix a couple of years back. I think it was Joe the Juice Guy. If you look it up, you'll probably find the guy. And what he did was he was having a lot of like health issues or whatever, and so they was going to put him on all these medications. And he decided to start juicing. Like he bought a juicer and just started juicing. So every meal he had was juice. And yeah, he lost a lot of the weight. And he actually did that for an extreme amount of time. Like over a year, I almost want to say he juiced like everything. And so he lost a lot of weight. But the only thing about these type of diets, particularly for us regular people, because I think Joe was a special type of person who had the grace to do a juice diet for that long. That's not something you're really going to do for a long period of time. It's not sustainable. And like the thing is, it's not like, oh, I want to challenge you saying that you can't do it so that you can then prove me wrong that you can do it. It's more so about, why would you want to? Like, there's so much joy in eating. Like, why would you want to take that away? Like, eating is like so much ingrained in our culture where we spend time around meals. We spend time together. This is how we socialize. So why would you want to take away a big part of your social life, even looking beyond the whole, doing it for health reasons or whatever. So like when it comes to juicing or eating really liquid-based diet, that's one I tell people just to stay clear away from. For other reasons, it makes weight loss in the future more difficult. So when I was talking about how you can, like how we have a certain amount of calories that we burn just naturally, just by because our body is functioning. Part of that that is a part of that equation basically is how much lean muscle mass you have. So the more lean muscle mass you have, the more calories you will burn. And I can go deeper into that, but I'll just pretty much leave it there. It was just saying, like, the more lean muscle mass you have, it just burns more calories, right? And so the thing is, when you're on these like liquid diets, like one of the first things you lose, you lose water. You lose a lot of water weight, but then you also lose like you lose your lean muscle mass. So like you're technically, like the scale will say you're losing weight, but you're not losing fat, because the next thing to go after the water weight is your lean muscle. So if you're losing lean muscle, one, you're going to be weaker, you're not going to be strong, and you're also going to be making it more difficult for you to lose weight in the future, because that lean muscle mass plays a big role in how many calories you naturally burn just by, existing. There's also a really big risk of malnutrition, particularly when you get to like the juice, the teas, and like the soups, depending on what kind of soup you have. It's hard to get all those nutrients in that you would get from eating actual food. It's really difficult to get like fiber for one. It's really difficult to get protein. So now you're at risk of being malnourished. I actually did juicing because I watched the Joe's his documentary. I was like, well, let me give this a try. Like, I hadn't really heard anything like adverse, health effects to juicing or anything like that. So I was like, let me give this a try. So I bought a blender and I was like, I'll give it a week. And one of the things that happened to me, and this is one of the key signs, like one of the first signs that you know that you're malnourished, is that your gums start bleeding. And so that's what happened to me. So that was a sign of like, okay, wait a minute, I'm malnourished. So like, I definitely, I'm not getting the nutrients that I need to really, sustain living or whatever. And so like, that was the reasons why I never like really went back to it, didn't continue it. The other one of the things that you have to like really look out for these type of diets is that there are a lot of hidden calories. If you're doing juice or if you're doing like smoothies, particularly if they're really fruit based, it could be a lot of calories because fruit have a lot of sugar in them. So naturally they have a lot more calories than your like vegetables would. Even if you go to like a Smoothie King or like any type of smoothie like place, you have to be really cautious. And like, people having this notion in their mind that, oh, if they're having a smoothie, they're making the best choice, they're making a really great choice. But really, you have to pay attention. Like, how many calories are you consuming? Like, was you supposed to have been like something to like a snack to hold you over, can end up being like over 500-600 calories, depending on what size you get and what all you add in it. And like, at that point, you could have just had a meal at that point. Even like, if you guys are familiar with like the Naked juice or their smoothies, but they're like, sold at the grocery stores, like one of those gonna have like 50 grams of sugar in it, which is like ridiculous. Like, all is supposed to be healthy because it has all of this fruits and vegetables in it. Like, they show you on the bottle like how many pounds of vegetables and fruits that are in one of those bottles. But the thing is like, one thing that some people don't maybe notice is that there's a crazy amount of sugar in those drinks, more sugar than you would have in a full day. And the thing is like, you will probably drink that alongside eating something else. So it's like, you're not really doing yourself any favors. And so you're actually consuming more calories than you would have if you would just had a regular, sweet tea at that point. So when it comes to like liquid-based diets, I'm definitely not necessarily for it. Even though you can make your own decision at the end of the day, but that's the one. If I was pushed to say, I would definitely steer everyone away from liquid-based diets. So our liquid-based diets for you. And for each one of these sets, I'm going to go through like the sustainability, the cost, the risk of adverse health effects, and weight loss. So sustainability is low because you're literally not eating. You're literally going to be starving. Like, you'll have something to drink and your stomach will be full because it's full of all that liquid, but literally an hour later, you'll be right back hungry. It's also not really all that sustainable because of the fact that, if you're doing smoothies, if you're doing like fruits and vegetables, like juicing, like either you're going to be buying a lot of juice or you have to like buy a juicer for it. And like, all the fruits and vegetables that you would go through it will get really expensive, because when it comes to like juicing, you have to use fruit. You have to use fresh fruits and vegetables. You can't use frozen for that. So those are going to be a lot more expensive. When it comes to smoothies, like, yeah, you can do frozen, but even still, that can really add up. And if you want to actually incorporate protein, because you're going to need to get protein from somewhere, those protein powders are really expensive. So when it comes to the costs to like your liquid-based diets, they're definitely going to be more on the higher side. Your risk of adverse health effects, we talked about that already, but basically they're going to be high as well. And then your weight loss effectiveness. Like, yeah, you will actually lose weight if you like spend some time juicing like a week or whatever. But the thing is that weight is not going to be fat, most likely. You're most likely going to lose water weight and then your lean muscle mass. So you will lose weight, like the scale number will go down, but it won't be weight that's fat. And so it's going to go right back up when you stop juicing and go back to regular eating. So the next one, set of diets I kind of wanted to go over are just like plant-based. So that's like your vegan, vegetarian, all those things. When it comes to like the whole vegan thing, it's kind of more so a lifestyle than it is a diet. Particularly vegan, now it's really like a spectrum to how extreme you want to get, where it's like a vegetarian on one side and then someone who's vegan on the opposite side of the spectrum. So just starting with vegan, it's a plant-based diet. The person doesn't consume meat, they don't consume any meat byproducts, and they also don't consume any animal byproducts. And not just that they don't consume it, they don't use it as well. So as far as meat byproducts, that's like a chicken stock or a beef broth or something like that. When it comes to animal products, byproducts, that's your honey, that's your beeswax. They won't wear leather or fur or wool or silk or fur. I might have said fur already, or leather. So there's like products that they literally won't use because of this vegan lifestyle. When it comes to being a vegan, it goes beyond, oh, I want to be healthy. It goes beyond trying to get healthy, having a healthy lifestyle. It goes more on to like, how do you live? How do you move, and how do you like operate as, someone on earth? So basically they're looking towards, they're really environmentally conscious. They're interested in like reducing their carbon footprint. They're interested in reducing their waste, because when it comes to animal products, it uses more resources, it uses more water, more land to grow it, or to like have farms like beef farms and chicken farms, all that stuff takes up more space. Then you have all the waste. So someone who's vegan, they're really mindful of the environmental effect of what they eat and the products that they use and consume. And so that's what really drives their motive to live that lifestyle. They're also probably concerned about, how meat is produced in this country, so like, how is it being produced? So that's something that they might, have seen videos or know, like, okay, animals have feelings. Animals are living creatures that they should have the right to live, then we shouldn't be eating them. And basically they have a whole mind frame of wanting to preserve, that life. The next one is the lacto-vegetarian. So all the ones after vegan, they typically don't have that whole environmental note of it. So usually they'll still have honey, they'll still have the animal byproducts, they'll still probably use meat products, byproducts, depending on which level they're at. So, but the vegan is the one that usually has that whole lifestyle component. So lacto-vegetarian is a plant-based diet with the addition of dairy. So they eat, fruits, vegetables, grains, but then they also eat dairy. So that means they're eating cheese, they're eating yogurt, they're eating, milk. A ovo-vegetarian is a plant-based diet with the addition of eggs. So they eat all the, fruits, vegetables, grains, but then they also eat eggs. And then you have your lacto-ovo-vegetarians, which is like the most common, and it's plant-based, but they eat eggs and they eat dairy. Then you have a pescatarian. And basically a pescatarian, they don't consume red meat, they don't consume poultry, and they don't consume fowl. But they'll eat dairy, they'll eat eggs, and then they'll have to eat everything else that a vegetarian would eat. And the last one, and it's kind of funny because like a lot of people, I've heard both sides of it where they won't even consider this as even on the spectrum of a vegetarian. They call it a flexitarian, which basically means that they limit the amount of meat they eat, but they're not completely restricted from it. So like they'll be like maybe like 80% vegetarian, but every now and then they might eat, chicken or beef or whatever. More so it's about how often they will eat it as opposed to what they're eating. So for flexitarian, they mostly eat vegetarian, but then they're not completely opposed of eating meat from time to time. So when it comes to like a plant-based diet, the sustainability of it is moderate to high, and it just kind of depends on what side of the spectrum you're on, and like your kind of like your motive of doing it. So if you have like the motivation to like really help with the planet, help work, do things to like help preserve the planet and other animals and all that kind of stuff, then being a vegan would probably be right up your alley, if you're someone who doesn't necessarily care so much about that, jumping straight to vegan might be difficult. When it comes to like if you want to transition to like a vegetarian lifestyle, I recommend basically starting with like a lacto-ovo. So you still have your eggs, you still have your dairy, and then gradually incorporate or take away different foods. Really, you could actually start off as a flexitarian and then work your way back. So like start with a flexitarian, limiting your consumption of meat. And then, after a while, you can then go on to like being a pescatarian where you're only eating like, your fish and you're not eating any red meat or poultry. And then going to lacto-ovo vegetarian where you're just eating the plant-based diet plus the eggs and the dairy. And then from there, moving your way. Because the thing is, you can jump straight in or you can go, like take it step by step and just see, after a while, your taste changed and you're no longer interested in meat. So then it's easier to go to the, vegetarian or vegan lifestyle. The cost varies. It just depends on where you are on that spectrum. It also kind of depends on how many like alternatives you like to consume. So a lot of times people will, particularly if they first start off becoming vegetarian or vegan, they might run to like the, meatless meats products. So it might be like chicken, like the chick patties, or it'll be like the, basically they're all soy based usually. They're usually soy based. So they're also like different alternatives. So like all those alternatives can typically be a lot more expensive than your, regular fruits and vegetables. So it really just depends. If you're trying to like mimic the taste of meat and the feel of meat, those products are going to be a little bit more expensive. So that's kind of the reason why it will be more expensive. But basically, a lot of the foods that will come with being vegetarian are moderately priced. You can find cheaper options. You can do canned or frozen vegetables and fruits as opposed to fresh, which saves on cost. So I basically said that, the cost varies. The risk for adverse health effects are low. Because like with vegetarian lifestyle, you're still getting your protein. You're not completely cutting off like particular, nutrients. So you can still get protein from like plant-based products. So your risk of adverse health effects are really low. When it comes to weight loss, effectiveness, I would say it's pretty much moderate. And the reason why I said it's moderate, because regardless of the diet, whatever plan that you subscribe to, if you overeat, you're going to gain weight. It's not going to help you. So if you like eat moderately, and follow a vegetarian diet, you will lose weight because your fruits and vegetables have less calories in them than your meat did, and you'll get full off of less. So you can possibly lose weight with being a vegetarian, but it just depends on like how much you consume. But that's with any diet. So the next one is the Whole30. Whole30 is a very interesting diet, and the thing is about Whole30, it's not really a diet, which was one of the things I found kind of interesting as I was looking into this. Because the thing about Whole30 is not about losing weight at all. Literally, one of the rules in Whole30, and there's quite a few rules. It's like a couple of books that people read. There's like a cookbook and then another book. And so like one of the rules though is that you basically hide your scale. You do not look at the scale for 30 days. So this is not for weight loss. The purpose of this program, basically the Whole30 is like an elimination diet. So you do elimination diets basically if you're like having adverse health effects to food. So like it might be allergy, you might be having food sensitivities, and you're trying to narrow it down. You take away all the foods that could possibly cause that reaction, and you slowly bring them back into your diet. So then that way you can tell which ones like cause some type of effect. So like some foods, like for some people, gluten causes them to be really bloated, and so but it's only after they've not had gluten for a while and then they brought it back is when they can actually see that happening. So Whole30 is an elimination diet program that requires removing elements from your diet that are commonly linked to food sensitivities, cravings, disrupt your hormones, poor sleep, and other issues. It's designed to teach you how the foods you've been eating are impacting how you feel, how you look, and your quality of life. It also helps you build healthier relationship with food. And that one's actually a really interesting one. And when I go through like what you can eat and what you can't eat, I'll point out how it helps you with the whole relationship with food part. But basically, it's like a lifestyle change. Like people who usually go through Whole30, they figure out what foods that cause some type of adverse health effect for them, and then they typically limit it or stop eating it. So the restricted foods on Whole30 are quite a bit actually. You can't have sugar. You can't have natural sugar. You can't have artificial sweeteners. You can't have any type of alcohol. They even specify smoking, which I thought was interesting. That's something you can't have. You can't have grains. You can't have beans. You can't have soy. You can't have dairy. You can't have processed additives. And you can't have any, they say, fake treats with Whole30 approved ingredients. So like one thing is like that I've been seeing a lot lately is like cauliflower crust for like pizza. So they take cauliflower and they create pizza crust for it. That you can't have foods like that because and their whole reasoning behind it, and it goes back to having the whole better relationship with food. They don't want you to even mimic a food. So like bread and like chips and those type of things really are foods that we typically crave. They cause us to crave, have those type of cravings. And so what they're trying to do with this program is actually eliminate all cravings. So they want you not to have any type of cravings. So you do that by suppressing it, so you don't like give into that craving. So for like a lot of other diets, like let's say if you're going vegetarian, you would let's say you wanted like a burger because you just feel like having like that burger feel. You'll eat like a bean burger, and so it's vegetarian because there's no meat, but it's still a burger. Well, in Whole30, you can't do that because you're giving into that craving. And so the thing is a lot of times those cravings are just filler food. So we're using food to fill in for like sometimes we stress eat, sometimes we emotionally eat, sometimes we just eat just because we are bored. And so with Whole30, you're really changing your relationship with food. You're really changing how you see it and how you utilize it. So you're using food for fuel, not to just to help with some type of emotional level, type cravings. So what can you eat on Whole30? You can eat meat, you can eat poultry, you can eat fish, you can eat vegetables, you can eat fruits, and you can eat fats. And the thing about the fats one, that I thought was interesting. So on Whole30, you can't eat dairy, but you can have clarified butter. And clarified butter is basically when they heat it up and they remove all of the milk solids from it. So like if you go to like a seafood restaurant and they have like crab legs and they have that butter that they usually serve with it is clarified butter. And you can have that because it doesn't have any of the milk proteins, and milk proteins might cause some type of sensitivity. So, is it sustainable? I said this one was moderately sustainable, and I said that because it's only 30 days. You do this specifically for 30 days, and then that's it. So, like, you can do anything for 30 days. We can all put our minds to doing some type of change for 30 days. So that's why I said it was more moderate. Like, it's doable. The cost is moderate to high. The thing about Whole30 is it eliminates all the grains. And like grain products are like your rice, your oatmeals, your pastas. Those are our filler foods. Like the way we eat as Americans, we fill up on, pasta and grains, and then we have a meat and then some like vegetables. But like to fill out, like it doesn't feel like a complete meal if you don't have that grain element. And grains are, one of the more least expensive options as far as food. So like, you can get a whole container of oatmeal for like $2. So it's like, those foods are a lot less expensive. So now you're focusing on eating the meat and the vegetables and the fruits, which are going to be a lot more because you're going to need those type of filler foods to make you feel full again. So it's going to be a bit more expensive. With Whole30, you also have to focus on having good quality of meat. So like making sure it's grass-fed, making sure it's organic. So then, of course, those are going to be a little bit more expensive, the risk of adverse effects, there's very low. Really, you could say no adverse health effects, because you're literally doing this to figure out what are causing you those adverse health effects. So like, this is probably the cleanest you'll possibly be eating out of all the diets. So the risks are very low. And weight loss effectiveness, I said moderate, because what I've heard, because one thing you have to keep in mind, it's only a 30-day program. So you're only going to lose but so much during 30 days, you know? But I've seen people where they lost, 15 pounds, which is quite substantial in a month. But the reason I have that star there is because this program, this way of eating, is not about losing weight. It's about changing your relationship with food. But people have also lost weight by following the meal plan. And so the last one I wanted to talk about is keto. That's one that's really big now. Between Whole30 and keto are the ones that are really big for 2019, the one of the diets I keep hearing about. So the ketogenic diet is a low-carb, high-fat diet. It involves drastically reducing your carbohydrate intake and replacing it with fat. That reduction in carbs puts your body into a metabolic state called ketosis. So basically, your body will normally burn glucose or glycogen if the glucose has been stored for energy. Instead, it switches off because you're not consuming enough carbohydrates. So it switches off and it burns the fat instead. And so what do you eat on keto? You do low carb, moderate protein, and high fat. So it's about 75% of your diet is now fat, 20% is protein, and only 5% is that carb element. So you can eat fish, you can eat meat, you can eat seafood, you can eat eggs. You when it comes to all stuff on keto, particularly like your fats, you want to make sure it's really high quality. So make sure it's grass fed, make sure it was sustainably raised, farm raised. Make sure it's really high quality, because you're going to be consuming a lot of fat. You want to do full fat dairy. This is not the time to do a low fat dairy. This is time to get your full fat in. With vegetables, you can do vegetables that are grown above the ground, which is a very specific stipulation. As far as fruits, the only fruits you can really eat are berries, and that's because they're low in carbs. And then you can do low carb nuts. And like the thing that they was talking about that I read is that you have to be careful with nuts, because some of them can be really high in carbohydrates. And the thing is, you can only have 5% of your total allowance of food coming from carbs. And so if you're you don't want to waste them, you have to be really specific and really pay attention. Keto is one of those diets you gotta pretty much meal plan out. You gotta meal plan that thing out, and you gotta make sure you're counting like your macros. That is really important. As far as all of the other diets, none of them really require you to like have any type of log or have anything where you have to keep count of. But when it comes to keto, that's the one that you really have to focus on, because you have to be within those percentages, or you're not going to be in ketosis. Your restrictive foods are anything that's high in carbohydrates. So that's your grains, your beans, or your legumes. Most fruits, you can't have like your root vegetables. So it'd be like your root vegetables like carrots. You can't, or any vegetable that's grown under the ground, because typically those have more sugar in them. You also can't have sugar. You can't have alcohol, because those are all carbohydrates and they're all high, and you have to limit those. So is keto for you? For sustainability, I said low to moderate, and it really depends on the person at this point. So one with keto, you really have to change the way you think about food. You really have to change what you eat, and like what you even consider a meal. You have to reconsider how you consider different options. So like for me personally, breakfast, I don't really like eggs. I don't really like sausage. There's a lot of things I don't like. I'm really particular about breakfast. So for me, my breakfast looks like cereals. It looks like oatmeals. It's mostly grain-based. Like my breakfast is primarily grain-based. Keto will be difficult for me to do, because I'm like, okay, what would I eat for breakfast? Because having like a chicken patty does not seem like breakfast to me, Like I like pancakes. I like waffles. But on keto, you can't have like, the thing about the difference between keto and Whole30 is you can't have those alternatives. So like if you use almond flour as opposed to regular flour, you can make you some pancakes. But then that's when the cost starts getting higher. So when I say cost, I said moderate to high, because like you can make, keto friendly baked items, keto friendly carb items, but they're going to be really expensive because you have to use nut flours and you have to use all sorts of like crazy ingredients that get really expensive really quickly. The adverse health effects, I just said there was low to moderate. And I put a start by moderate because of the fact that, well, there's a couple different things. When people get on keto, there's this thing called keto flu that people usually experience, and you have flu-like symptoms. It doesn't last, but it just happens when your body transitions from burning the glucose to burning fat for fuel. And the symptoms can be like fatigue, headache, irritability, difficulty on focusing, dizziness, sugar cravings, nausea, muscle cramps. So for some people, that's like, whoa, that's too much just for me to be healthy. So that's why I say it's kind of like moderate. But the thing is, it doesn't last long. One thing people were kind of concerned about is your cholesterol levels. Because if the thought process is, well, if you're eating all this cholesterol, well, then surely if you're eating all this fat, then surely you have really high cholesterol, because, cholesterol is basically having fat in your blood vessels. Well, it turns out that from what I've read, it doesn't have as big of an effect on your cholesterol levels as people originally thought it would. So that's a good thing. So it's low to moderate, and it really just depends on the person. For weight loss effectiveness, people lose a lot of weight on keto. I've noticed that. So you can definitely lose weight on it when you start burning fat, because the thing is, that's what you want to burn. When you want to lose weight, you want to burn fat. That's what you want to get rid of. So if you're literally transforming the way you eat so that your body burns fat, that means you're going to be great on the weight loss part. The harder part for keto is making sure you're in ketosis and making sure you're staying there. You have to check. And like the thing is, they have like these strips that you can put, like you can use, but basically you have to do like a urine test to really get a good measurement of whether or not you're in ketosis. That might be a lot for some people. Like, who wants to really go through all that? Like, for some people it's cool, but then for some people that's going to be too much. So the sustainability for this one, it just varies for real for like different people. It just kind of depends on like, where you are and what you really want to get out of it. But like I've seen people on keto for a good little while, and like they've done well with it. So it's not impossible. So I just wanted to give like my final thoughts on all of this. At the end of the day, the best diet for you is the one that you'll actually stick with, the one that you will actually follow, the one that you actually enjoy doing. If you feel restricted all the time, you're going to start feeling like, oh, I need to have a cheat day. Like, you should basically diet in the way that you don't have to have a cheat day. It shouldn't be cheating. It's like, oh, I can't eat this because this works with what I'm already doing. This is a part of my set. This might be a part of my meal plan. It's something I can already account for as a part of, how I, based off of my caloric numbers or whatever the case may be. Like, whatever you're measuring your diet based off, like, it should never be a situation where I feel like I'm cheating, because now your relationship with food is now off. If you feel like, oh, if I had that one cookie, oh, I'm cheating. Who says who? Like, who made these rules where like, oh, you can't enjoy food? Like, at the end of the day, you should enjoy food and should be able to be healthy. And part of that is having a good relationship with food. I know I hear a lot of times like, oh, I can't have that in the house because I have no self-control. Like, food should not have that power over you. Like, at the end of the day, basically it should be, this is what you eat to sustain, function, and to enjoy it. So that's just my thought on that. But yeah, you have to take into consideration the cost of the food, the effects to your health. The thing is that a lot of people will be like, oh, well, like particularly with the juice diet, they'll say, oh, it's only for a short period of time, but that short period of time can end up with long-term health effects. So you gotta pay attention. You gotta know those risks that you're taking. And at the end of the day, your goal should be to have a healthy lifestyle. It should not be a number on the scale. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. If you guys have any questions, you can put them in the comments, and then I'll hang around for a couple minutes just to see if anybody has any questions. And if not, that will be the end. I just want to thank you guys for joining this class. I'm really excited about being able to share this information. You go to school for 2 years on, you know, well, not 2 years, for 2 degrees on the topic. You know, it's something I'm really passionate about. It's something I really care about. I've talked about it before that I really care about, you know, making sure people have access to nutrition, because, you know, the society makes it, well, the society and the health and wellness, you know, still makes it where it's not attainable for everybody. You have to be rich to do it, and that's not fair. And so my goal is just to make sure that nutrition is accessible to everyone, and I'm doing that by having these courses. So it doesn't look like anyone has any questions, which is awesome, because that means you guys got everything and you know everything, and I did a great job. So again, I just want to say thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you do have questions later on, you can just send me a message now, you know, or you can even just put in the comments later. I'll answer them, you know, the best of my ability and as quick as possible. But again, thank you so much.